Let's talk about that gap that lies between you and what you want. Is it like this big or is it like this big? I'm not talking about that gap between you and, oh no, I don't have what I want. That's mostly a pity party anyway. I'm talking about the gap that's between what you're dreaming for, what you're priming for. And then there's this, what actually exists in the moment. There's that gap. Well, that's why they call it personal growth, so we can grow into it. In this video, I'll share some tips for navigating that gap between what you want and what you have, so you're prepared for the worst without focusing on it, and you're creating the best without getting attached to outcome. By the way, hello friends! If you're new here, welcome. I'm Kristen Collier, a writer and a coach who's helped thousands of people to find joy in their lives and relationships. Why is this so important? Well, it feels better day to day, that's for sure, but there's more. According to a Harvard study, the people who are most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 are the healthiest mentally and physically at age 80. Your joy is not just for your wellness today, it's also for your wellness tomorrow. It's for yourself and for your relationships. Thumbs up and subscribe if you want more strategies to grow joy in practical ways. So here's what I'll teach you today. First, how to have high expectations without getting attached to outcomes. Second, how to direct your attention to where you want it to go. And third, how to prepare for the worst possibility without expecting or dwelling on it. And at the end of these tips, I'll share a story I wrote called Dress for the Water, Not the Weather, with some amazing footage and pictures, which I sent out in my weekly newsletter. You can subscribe to that newsletter at callyourconnections.com and be one of the first to get it. There's some sweet insights and offerings there that I don't share here on YouTube, and I wouldn't want you to miss those. Okay, first off, how do you have high expectations without getting attached to outcomes? Easier said than done, right? Well, first, here's the science of why it's worth doing. According to Robert Merton's research back in the last century, I'm talking 1948, whatever we believe will happen fuels our thoughts, words, and actions in a self-fulfilling prophecy. You knew that, right? There is science behind it. And this is the case whether we believe something good or bad is going to happen. And our social experience reflects that. Here's how. There are countless studies showing that people tend to behave the way you expect them to. They'll live up to your most dreaded fears or your highest hopes. You get to set the expectation. I loved the movie Stand and Deliver. Did you love that too? The true story of an inner city school teacher, Jamie Escalante, who had high expectations of students who'd been largely just like abandoned by the school system. Escalante expected students to really stand and deliver, but he had to do it first. He worked long hours, he took risks, and he engaged in really out-of-the-box thinking to give them the opportunities and the encouragement that they needed to see themselves as capable of succeeding. High expectations are actually a gift, not a problem, unless we get attached to things happening in a certain way. People will surprise you, stuff goes sideways. Your bliss ultimately depends on you, or else it's just a fleeting happiness. If you want empowered joy, mind the gap. Cultivate high expectations without being wedded to particular outcomes. I want to add that research does not pan out around us expecting the worst and then somehow being less disappointed when it happens. Turns out that people who have a sunny attitude tend to be more okay with things not turning out as planned. But there are some complications here in terms of whether optimism or pessimism wins in the end, and I'll discuss that at the end of our 3 points. For now, here's how to cultivate high expectations while avoiding attachment to outcome. Decide what you want to happen, but more importantly, decide how you want to feel when that happens. Focus on the feeling in your body, on the sensation of the need met, rather than concentrating on how you want that need to be met. For example, when I was planning my vacation to Spring Creek, I pictured myself relaxing, that's a need met, having a beautiful paddle down the creek and feeling restored, more needs met. So I really felt into what beauty, relaxation, and restoration meant to me. I used the pictures in my head, Blue Creek, forests, birds, to help me get there. And then I focused on the feeling. I call this practice priming. It helps you to feel the joy of met needs and stay open to how they will be met, because there are countless ways, and it's good to remember that. So here's what happened. I primed for all that wonder in Spring Creek, and it was beautiful in all the ways I'd imagined. But there was highway noise, a lot of it, which I didn't expect. I hadn't realized how much I depended on quiet for that feeling of restoration. Little attachment there. Which leads us to number 2, how to direct your attention to where you want it to go. In that moment, my one and only vacation, with semi-trucks roaring by, grinding their Jake brakes, I really wanted to get a handle on my thinking. Thoughts like, this is going to drone on like this all weekend. How could it not? Will I even be able to sleep with the windows open? We're already threatening to drain my already low tank into fumes. Thank goodness I had been practicing priming, and I knew from experience that I could be happy regardless of circumstances, even on vacation. But it was still up to me, which was unexpected and unwelcome at the moment, but still true. I am responsible for my attitude and experience, as are you. It's kind of awesome and it's kind of awful at the same time, right? I knew that where I put my attention mattered. If I focused on all the reasons that I was a victim of my vacation, then I was going to live that reality out morbidly. No doubt about it. And this can happen to you too. Tell me it hasn't at some point, right? If by contrast, you're aware that you are in the driver's seat during your vacation, then you can point your attention anywhere you want to. All is well, even when things go sideways. But here's the thing. Don't expect that you can drive the vehicle of your body skillfully directing your attention when you need it most if you don't do it regularly. It takes practice. That practice, it requires you to first be aware of where your attention's going. Does it move to the worst case scenario? Not surprising. Brain's built-in negativity bias causes that. It's not your fault. But how long does your attention hang out in doomsday thinking? Or do you frequently loop uncomfortable memories or worries about the future? Or see the negative in every situation? Be honest with yourself right now and assess. Assess. That's not usually connected with optimism. Optimism. That's not usually connected with optimism, is it? This is a new breed of optimism. Once you're aware and assessing when your attention runs off without you, it's time to practice shifting your attention. This could be hard at first. Start with moving it from something neutral to something positive. For example, from thinking about breakfast cereal to thinking about your fun weekend plans. Breakfast cereal is less of a sticky wicket than worrying about whether a friend or coworker is mad at you, right? Start small. As you gain experience, you can practice switching your attention from more negative thoughts to positive ones. It might mean refocusing over and over when your attention snaps back like a rubber band to the negative. But if you do that, not just thinking about shifting your attention, but actually shifting your attention from moment to moment as needed, you will get better. And when you get better at directing your attention, so much more becomes possible, because what you put your attention on grows. Your emotions respond to your thoughts. One thought, one feeling. And those feelings stimulate other thoughts. And it's a loop, whether positive or negative. Your consciousness can drive a big vehicle. Your ability to direct your attention to the positive will impact your life in massive ways the more you do it. It's not like driving a Volkswagen Bug. This is like driving a Mack truck, which is pretty cool. Speaking of, in the case of the highway sounds being so near our cabin, here's how I worked with that by directing my attention. On the first night, it was really a shock to my system. And I gave myself some time, a little grace to feel those feelings of frustration and worry. And I told myself, and I told Seda too, I am going to come back to a different place with this, but for right now, I'm feeling these, and I'm going to come back by tomorrow morning to really looking for the positive in this, or I'm going to, be turning my attention back to the positive. And I did that. And in the morning, it was effort. I turned my attention to it over and over and over. And pretty soon it was catching on the things that were pretty exciting about the place. Like the wildlife was amazing. We saw wood ducks nesting across the creek. We saw beaver swimming by, super sweet. And by the afternoon, I wasn't not just thinking about the highway noise. I wasn't even hearing the highway noise very much at all now and then. And I was celebrating every time that I'd gone for a little ways. Oh, I didn't hear it. That was super cool. And then by the next morning, it was like I'd totally tuned it out. And you know what that's like if you've ever lived near like a railroad track or something like that, where there's noise that everybody else hears, but you don't. And I learned something. I hadn't planned for the possibility of highway noise. Now I have experience. We'll research that better on the Airbnb reviews. But I did plan for other things going sideways. And I didn't let a focus on potentially negative what ifs spoil my vacation when I did that. Which leads me to the third tip I have for you today. Prepare for the most obvious ways that things could go sideways without getting anxious about them. Bum, bum. It's a bit of a tightrope. But again, practice, my friend. In the case of Spring Creek, the most obvious thing that could go sideways was my canoe, which would have been a dragmo because the water there is around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 6 degrees Celsius. Considering 0 is freezing, that is cold. I was paddling alone, so if I had tipped my boat, I'd be responsible for getting it back, likely without help. I like my boat. I don't want to lose it. So how did I plan for the worst without getting hung up on anxieties? First, I approached it like an adventure. I realistically considered, to the best of my knowledge, what it would be like to hang out in that frigid water. I'll tell you right now, I am not built for it, so I decided to wear my wetsuit, which made me look like a seal among Barbies in bikinis that weekend. I was the only person on Spring Creek with a wetsuit because the weather was very warm. Now you have a hint about what the newsletter story is about. Dress for the water, not the weather, right? So I've known people who've almost lost their lives within minutes because they were ill prepared for water temperatures being that cold. And I'm not going to roll the dice on that one. The key here is not to get caught up in worry, but to prepare for potential disaster, making a trial run if possible. Just get prepared. I swam in my wetsuit and I nearly froze my toes off in 5 minutes since they were not covered. For the record, none of the bikini-clad folks out there were in the water at all. I mean, other than on like their paddleboards. So in preparing for disaster, you flirt with it judiciously. And then sit back and feel awesome about your preparation and level of experience. You will no doubt discover other things that could go wrong and grow your experience. Very likely dodging death because, truth be told, the will to live is very strong. So in the gap between you and what you want lies the potential for uncharted joy and growth. If you approach that gap mindfully, creating without attachment, directing your awareness intentionally, and assessing your skill and responsibility, you'll grow at an exponential rate with joy. We're not finished here yet. That story, Dress for the Water, Not the Weather, is coming up. And with it, some amazing footage of one of the cleanest and most magical bodies of water on the planet. If you value what you've gotten so far from this video, please like it and share with a friend. Okay, sit back and relax for the story time. It's been really hot today, so I'm like, I'm just loving moving around. Here's Dress for the Water, Not the Weather. I shove my foot into the black hole and wince as I yard the neoprene into place, one leg in and one to go. A jerk, a groan. Both legs are now encased like blackened sausages to the knee. And I begin to tug in earnest. This Farmer John wetsuit, clearly designed for a man, has zero give at the hips. I gasp and wobble, nearly toppling onto the bed while Seda suppresses a smile. Is it always like that, or did it shrink? A valid question to ask a woman over 50. If you're wearing body armor. I nod my forgiveness. It's, I say, puffing and pulling, always like this. Victorious, I stretch the armhole over my shoulder and fasten the Velcro on the other side. I'm the only woman in a wetsuit on the river today, and I'm not sorry to be exceptional. The temperature of Spring Creek is 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 6 degrees Celsius, and after 5 minutes of swimming around in my wetsuit, my bare feet threatened to fall off. I have primed for an exquisite paddle, all beauty and inspiration. I have no doubt that it will be so, and at the same time, I'm dressed for the possibility that I could tip my canoe. People make different choices around safety. What I consider dangerous, you might find to be a cakewalk. But maybe one of us is not fully informed. For this reason, my optimistic practice of joy includes a risk assessment. I assess circumstances outside of my control as well as my own skills and abilities. I do not want to die sunny side up. I also don't want to be limited by my fears. Satisfied with my choice to wear neoprene, I jump into my canoe and paddle solo down one of the cleanest creeks in the world. I glide past mare's eggs, the brown globes of cyanobacteria that thrive in the coldest waters where nothing else will grow. I drift over turquoise sands, past beaver dens and nests of geese. I hear osprey calling and look up to see a bald eagle perched on high near the bank. Everything is pristine. Even the highway noise disappears when I turn the bend. I'm so glad that I got over my old fears of paddling alone so that I could experience this. So glad that I found a joyful way that feels right to me. Having adjusted for safety, I completely surrender to the wonder that I came here for. I turn my canoe this way and that as I navigate the shallows, gliding upstream to the headwaters. This is sacred ground to the Klamath people, and I feel the pulse of spirit here. I breathe. Silty sands dance as water shoots up from deep within the earth. A bubbling creek, born of rock and mud. I bow in silence when I reach its end. I listen. I watch. I feel. This is what I came for. I have arrived in my own unique way. I have much to learn, and I am open, humble. Drifting homeward, gratitude fills my heart. That's the end. Friends, I thank you for watching. It's been a joy to share this with you today, and I do hope you'll sign up for my newsletter at collierconnections.com and subscribe to my channel here. Tell me your stories of navigating anxiety and practicing joy in the comments. Your shares are an inspiration for all. I am thrilled to co-create here with you. We have so much goodness to come.